someone that we didn't talk about last week when we mentioned the XXL freshman because they didn't make it. Guapdad 4000 dropping Platinum Falcon Returns, a little 6-song EP, nice little 18-minute listen. Give me a bit of the lowdown on Dad. Jeez, what a name.
Yeah, this is the second EP he's dropped this year. He's been doing this whole thing about releasing like just singles constantly, like one a week. So actually 5 of the 6 tracks on Platinum Falcon Returns had already been out. And I was like, just waiting for him to like gear up for like maybe another album or something for him to talk about him. But it seems like he was just doing these little EP drops. So he decided to talk about the second one here, which I actually think is a little better than the first one. But he also has 2 albums out. The most recent one was Dior Deposits last year. And I think that's when he really started to make some big noise. You know, about a year ago is when Stereo Gum and Vice both wrote about the rising wave that is scam rap in hip hop. You've heard me mention TJX6 of Detroit before, who's probably the best example of this. You listen to a song like Swipe Lesson, where he tells you how he defrauds like Best Buy and stuff in really eloquent rapped ways that are also really funny. And I think Guapdad's a little different because he's not as upfront about his scamming ways currently. He seems to just kind of wax poetic about that being more of his past life, the way Pusha T remembers his Escobar beginnings. So Guapdad's a little different. You know, I feel like he's leaning more towards being a normal rapper, but you know, his he didn't have choppas, he had VPNs, you know. So a little different, but I think he's pretty funny and definitely has his moments. So that's why I wanted to talk about him.
Yeah, and you know, obviously I'm not as tuned into Guapdad as you are. Very interesting name, like the name, especially the 4000. I don't know if there's any meaning behind that, but just a great number to choose for the back half. Platinum Falcon Returns, like you said, most of these songs had already been released. But I think there's a lot of quality on here. And just kind of looking quickly through the Spotify numbers, for someone that didn't quite make the XXL list, still some pretty decent numbers here. We have 4 songs in his top 5 have multi-million listens, not dollar listens, but listens. And a couple of songs on here, I think, will probably get a little bit more run now, like Orgasm Full of Pain, which only sits at around 250, but that one really jumped out at me as being probably one of the catchier songs and the ones I was left being like, all right, I was bouncing to that. It had at least a really interesting and like ear-catching hook to it, if nothing else, and you know, a ridiculous kind of metaphor, so to speak. But
yeah,
I think that there's a lot of that throughout this. Just like you find yourself bouncing to it. It's not anything too heavy, and you just kind of leave like, oh, that was a nice listen overall.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I think of something like the last track, which was the one new track, Hairless Horseman featuring Boogie. And that one's he's a little more softer spoken on that, and you know, kind of pondering if he should go back to fraud, you know, versus staying in the rap limelight. And you know, it's kind of interesting to hear him say that. But you know, on these 6 songs, he really just kind of change up that sound, right? Because you have Hairless Horseman, where he's a little slower, a little softer spoken. You have No Home for the Brave, where he almost does some like sing-songy stuff, like on the on that hook, the racky rack racks part, you know. Right. And then you have something where it's just kind of hot fire, like Little Scammer That Could with Denzel Curry. So, and if you listen to some of his other projects, you've seen this versatility as well. So, and actually, he had another single come out this year. It's a Rich Brian single that he's featured on called Bali. And once you know, he feels like someone who can really kind of adapt, and like I think lyrically he's not always that interesting, but like as you said, on something like Orgasm Full of Pain, he's kind of maybe not talking about any new themes, but he's approaching them in, I guess, a little bit of a unique way. So that's cool to hear. And his story is kind of interesting too, because when he was like coming up and like making himself into a real rapper, you know, as someone who literally was a scammer, you know, it's slightly different than validating yourself after TikTok success, you know. But he was bragging in the early days about scamming Drake. He literally got Drake to play After Party for free. meaning didn't pay him like 100 grand or whatever it was, you know?
Yeah, why not?
Like you can watch, I think there's some videos where it's like he meets G-Eazy for the first time at the trailer, and you can see on G-Eazy's face that he's like, "What? Who the fuck is this dude? Is it like why am I meeting him again?" Like it's like
Right.
stuff like that where like the story is pretty funny. So I'm definitely looking forward to the next big album. But I think there's some cool highlights here. And Little Scammer That Could, I think, had probably one of my favorite just off the cuff lines. Money longer than the DMV line. Good
There
stuff.
it is. No, that's definitely one of the other tracks that stood out, and I think especially Denzel Curry kind of on it gives him that cosign, a little bit of legitimacy there. So
Mhm.
I think we're gonna stay tuned into Guapdad 4000 as hopefully more stuff and another album comes out.